Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, Silent Bob, and all those terrible Jay and Silent Bob type pictures, man. You're listening to Drop the Mic, the only podcast that I listen to that I'm not a part of. Every podcast I listen to, I usually talk on it, but not fucking Drop the Mic. That's where I'm like, let me hear what the boys have to say. And now, we drop the mic.
Meet Otto. He's a clean-cut kid in a dirty business. He repossesses cars. He's a repo man.
You gonna give me my car back, or do I gotta go to your house and shove your dog's head down the toilet?
His mission is to repossess a '64 Chevy, but hidden within its trunk.
What you got in the trunk?
You don't want to look in there.
Is the most important discovery in the history of our planet. Repo Man. It's a mystery.
Suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp. Suddenly somebody will say like plate or shrimp or plate of shrimp out of the blue. No explanation.
It's a comedy.
What are you doing? Don't do that!
It's a chase. It's the forces of law.
Marlene, I'm on my coffee break.
Against the representatives of discontented youth. Against the finest minds in government.
I had a lobotomy in the end.
Lobotomy? Isn't that for loonies?
Not at all.
And they're all in pursuit of a '64 Chevy Malibu from who knows where.
Blam! Eyes melt, skin explodes, everybody dead.
Repo Man. The story of the ultimate repossession. Repo Man. Not just a job, it's an adventure.
Welcome back to our Humboldt San Diego podcast. We are your hosts, Wesley Swanson and Chris Pollack, and this is episode 331 entitled Podcast, where we say goodbye to our annual summer sci-fi programming with a review for the 1984 cult classic Repo Man. But first, let's get warmed up, shall we? What's up, Chris? How are you? Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here across from you in the room again. Are we stretching the definition of sci-fi? I don't know, but it's a cult sci-fi movie. It has sci-fi elements, undertones in it.
Yeah, very loosely, but I mean, it is what it is.
Hey, when you look it up on Wikipedia, the first line in the descriptor of the movie is like a sci-fi black comedy.
Mm-hmm.
That's good enough for us to talk about it in the summer of sci-fi.
Excited to talk about this nonetheless, man.
Yeah.
Solid pick.
I love it. It's a really fun movie. With so many great scenes and lines, and as I think we mentioned last month, great soundtrack, great like hardcore 80s Los Angeles era punk soundtrack. Los Angeles area punk soundtrack.
And now for a special news report. Brought to you by Drop the Mic.
This happened at the beginning of the month. I told you I'm sure you're going to mention this, but I do want to talk about him on mic when we get together to do Repo Man, and that was William Friedkin.
Yes.
Dying, which you and I had just talked about him a few months ago because I'd recommended one of his flicks.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunate that he passed away. He had just completed his last movie, so that's good. That's supposed to premiere at the Venice Film Festival, which, if I'm not mistaken, is going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go through his movies, man.
Of course. Yeah.
French Connection, which he wins an Oscar for. The Exorcist, one of the best movies of all time. One of the biggest movies of all time. I think might be Warner Brothers' biggest movie.
It was.
When you factor in inflation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's still Warner Brothers' biggest hit. A movie that I really, really love that was like a total bomb when it came out, called Sorcerer. It opened up like right across from Star Wars, unfortunately, in 1977, so it just got buried.
Mm-hmm.
But is a kind of developed a cult following later on, but is actually a legitimately really fucking great movie.
Mm-hmm.
So recommend that. Cruising, which is a very controversial movie about Al Pacino going undercover in the gay underworld to try to catch a serial killer that's preying on gay men. And was that early 80s New York.
Mm-hmm.
To Live and Die in L.A., which I believe is the movie I recommended on the show a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Great crime flick from the mid 80s. Amazing car chase in it. Might be better than the French Connection car chase? Question mark. Blue Chips, which I just watched not too long ago for the first time because I don't remember seeing that movie. Pretty decent movie, actually. I was surprised, even though Shaquille O'Neal's in it. As we know from your show that you just did recently.
Previous, yeah.
Jade, which I think was kind of another movie that either bombed or is kind of bad, but we gets a reference every now and then. Rules of Engagement with Samuel L. Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones. The Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro, which I actually think is a pretty solid flick.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's clearly like more movie there that got cut out. And I noticed watching it the last time I watched it when I told you I was doing a rewatch of his movies. There's like a scene that's like completely out of place in the movie. So I'd like to know what the deal behind all that was. And then the two Tracy Letts movies they did, Bug and Killer Joe, which I had watched for the first time. Really enjoyed Bug, and was kind of lukewarm on Killer Joe.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some McConaughey's pretty good in that, but overall, I was just kind of like, you know what's going on here?
The chicken bone.
The chicken, yeah,
is pretty wild.
The chicken bone, like fellatio thing. After he like smashes up Gina Gershon's face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild movie. I was just kind of lukewarm on it though, but I did enjoy Bug.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I remember I went to see Bug when it came out in the theater.
Do you still have that poster in
I do.
room? I remember that poster hanging up in your room for a long time.
Yes, I have the poster. I went to see it in the theater, and I was blown away by Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon because the movie literally is them.
I think Michael Shannon was in the play as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when it was in Chicago, I think Michael Shannon had done the play.
Nice.
If I'm not mistaken.
But I showed my grandparents this because I thought that they would. I mistakenly thought that they would get it or be a fan, and they did not like it at all. They're like, "Oh my god, it's so disappointing." It's like, I don't know.
It is kind of bleak.
It's kind of not so much like the premise, but it feels like The Whale, where you can kind of feel that it was a play first or whatever. It means it's intentional. But
yeah, and its primary location is one room in a motel.
Some people aren't into that. I get it.
But his last movie called The Kane Mutiny Court Martial, starring Kiefer Sutherland, supposed to premiere at the Venice Film Festival. I hope that gets a good distribution and they're able to see it. I did read today, though, that because I guess he was older, William Friedkin was older and possibly not in great health, that the studio required a backup director to be around, and that backup director was Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, wow, okay.
I don't know how often this happens, but I remember when Robert Altman did the Prairie Home Companion movie. Because he was older and in not great health when he did the movie, the studio required a backup director on that, and the backup director was Paul Thomas Anderson because he was very close friends with Robert Altman and, you know, Boogie Nights, which we were just talking about before we went on air, and Magnolia are very much Altman-esque films. So he was a huge fan of them. They were friends, so he was the backup director on that movie. That movie ended up being Altman's final movie, if I'm correct on that. So, I just read today that Guillermo del Toro was the backup director for William Friedkin on the Kane Mutiny Court Martial.
I did not know that. That's cool.
Nor did I. That wasn't mentioned anywhere. Like when Friedkin died.
Yeah.
And I just like saw that story today, like just before we came down to do the show. So, moving on, Robbie Robertson, who I don't know if you know or any of your listeners know. Acclaimed musician and songwriter, but he's pretty famous film-wise because he had a very long-time collaboration with Martin Scorsese. Mm-hmm. He was either the music supervisor on his films or actually did the score for a handful of his movies. Scorsese directed a documentary on his band called The Band. The documentary is called The Last Waltz. Mm-hmm. That he did, I think, in between Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. But Robertson works on Raging Bull. He works on The King of Comedy. He works on The Color of Money, Gangs in New York, Shutter Island, The Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, The Irishman, and he did the score for Killers of the Flower Moon, which will be out in, I think, next month. We're in September. So yeah, it'll be out next month. I think he did the score for that. That was probably his last piece of music that he did. So shout him out. Check out all those great Scorsese movies that he had a hand in shaping the soundtrack with Scorsese on or composing the score for.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Gotta mention Terry Funk.
That's right.
And not because I was ever into wrestling, but he's in Roadhouse and Over the Top, so we gotta definitely shout out his role in Roadhouse.
Mind your own business, Dad.
But I will shout him out for his wrestling because he was kind of doing the extreme wrestling.
Yeah.
With Mick Foley at one point.
I think he had a hand in every wrestling circuit besides AEW that's been in existence, which is a feat in itself. He was very, very prominent, influential. R.I.P. Terry.
I read that he kind of is responsible for kind of creating the extreme
hardcore,
wrestling. But I just wanted to shout him out because of Roadhouse, a movie which you and I did years ago with James, and is a really fun watch.
When I did I think you'll get a kick out of this. When I did a tribute for him on my Instagram, when I found out that he passed away, I did the song that I chose was the Jeff Healey song, Roadhouse Blues.
Yeah.
So, yeah. When I think of Terry, I think of Roadhouse. And that's how it's always going to be.
Yep. That's why we shout him out. And then Bob Barker, I think this last week.
99, right?
Maybe 2 years ago. Or not 2 years, 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 99. Was a game show host before The Price is Right, but The Price is Right is what he's always going to be known for from here on out. And I'm sure I'm not the only person to say this, but I watched many a show of The Price is Right, especially when you're homesick or you're home for the summer. It was always like, oh, Price is Right's going to be on at 10. Turn on the TV and watch it. And I haven't really popped in since Drew Carey took over for him. What was that? 07, 08, whenever he retired. But, man, there's nothing like watching the Price is Right. He was a good host. That was always a fun show. The games are always fun. And I still make reference to Price is Right rules, like if you're betting on something or if you can't go over the number. Price is Right rules.
People are already making that joke where it's he didn't get to $1.
99 cents, dude. Don't go over.
Also, shout out to that cameo in Happy Gilmore.
That Happy Gilmore cameo is an all-timer. That's one of the best cameos of all time.
Yep.
That's a really fun scene with him and Sandler. So yeah, shout him out. Maybe you covered this as well. We had talked about it, I think, on the last episode you and I did with movies getting bumped because of the strikes.
That's right.
And I'm really bummed to say that Dune got bumped to next year. And a shitty time, too. They're dumping it in March. So, I think it would play much better in the fall. So that's kind of a shitty thing for Warner Bros. To do, but they're moving their schedule around because they're afraid that the strikes won't be resolved by then, and they'll need people to go out there and promote the films.
Which is pretty funny because it's look at Barbie.
Barbie and Oppenheimer. Maybe it's because a lot of their stuff was done just prior, because they were kind of out there, not necessarily promoting on the talk shows, but like had done like
the premieres were happening for
previously recorded, interviews with a lot of the cast or directors. I think Nolan was kind of front and center for the Oppenheimer stuff when it actually came out, because obviously the actors can't promote the film.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, those two movies, huge blockbusters, and it's unfortunate that they don't want to come to, bring the strikes to an end. They want to keep prolonging it by holding out and not giving the actors and the writers a fair deal. So if they keep shifting their schedule around, they're going to lose money in the end, because people were already stoked to see Dune in November, and now it's going to come out like in March. I'm sure it would have been a big hit even without someone sitting on a talk show talking it up.
Yeah, we were all excited for that. And it would have been awesome to get Killers of Flower Moon and then Dune the next month, But what can you do? Still excited for it.
Still excited. I'm hoping that the March date gets moved into a better time for it. Like I said, I was hoping it would come out later in the year, because it seems like they were trying to make like another Oscar push for it, and it would get some awards recognition. And if it comes out in March, it'll probably be forgotten about by the time that stuff rolls around. So that was the major delay by Warner Brothers. They still have Wonka and Aquaman and The Color Purple set for their December releases, but my guess is those might end up moving as well. I would almost guarantee Wonka and Aquaman will get moved. They'll probably hold The Color Purple on Christmas as long as they can. But I would bet good money that Wonka and Aquaman get moved, because they're going to want Chalamet to promote Wonka. They're going to want Momoa to promote Aquaman. So we'll see. But as of this taping, Dune is the only one on their schedule that gets pushed so far. And The Exorcist moves up a week.
Yep.
It was supposed to come out on Friday the 13th in October, and
because of
the Taylor Swift concert movie is coming out, and I think they got scared and moved it. That's two separate audiences, but what do I know?
I guess movies have competed with her before, and I guess they flopped at the box office. So Blumhouse was doing the smart thing, but it's fucked up for us. Or fans that were excited because that was going to come out on Friday the 13th. Yeah. Why did she have to pick that day? What's the significance? Yeah, I know she has a thing for the 13th. Okay, but it could have been any month.
Yeah.
It had to be October, but whatever, Again, still excited to see The Exorcist.
She brought out the 13th of this month, which I think is a Wednesday. That's a perfectly good day to drop a movie.
They're probably not done editing, because I think they barely wrapped the filming of it on the end of her Eras tour, which just stopped. Which is like, why are you rushing it anyway? Doing, I don't know. Whatever.
With the way the strikes are going, they probably could have pushed it into November, December.
Because, do a Christmas thing.
Yeah, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of big competition then if they keep changing release dates.
She's already secured millions and millions of dollars in pre-sale tickets for that.
My sister was looking at that the other day, trying to get tickets. So yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I saw that got moved up. They got a little spooked by that. So we'll see. But that's my news.
Are you getting more interested in that Exorcist film, or are you still lukewarm on it?
I'm still a little lukewarm. I'll probably watch it, but I'm not the trailer wasn't super exciting for me.
Okay.
But I'll probably see it.
I have a couple pieces of news to rewind it back to the strike again. I guess now the video game world is being shook by it because a couple of the big studios are refusing to pay their voice actors. So now I think it's
Fuck that.
the SAG-AFTRA has extended the strike to the video game world, and now we're looking at delays on that medium
on the games as well. Well, fucking pay your people, man.
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Yeah, that sucks. It's shitty all around when the people actually in front and the talent and everything aren't being paid nearly as much as the studios and the executives are. That's bullshit. Writers especially are being fucked over constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope the writers get a really sweet deal out of this.
They better.
And then, like the whole AI thing. Have you ever listened to something that was like written by AI?
Yeah.
It sounds like a Trump, like Trump talking. Where you can tell like something's off.
Yeah.
And it's just like at some point it starts rambling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like Donald Trump.
Got him. All right, moving on. Director Anton Fuqua's Equalizer trilogy comes to a close with the release of Part 3, starring, of course, Denzel Washington. The new film opened this past weekend at number 1 with a gross take of $34 million.
That's pretty solid for a holiday weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised they released it this weekend. Usually they kind of wait until like mid-September-ish. But that's good for a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it beat out Barbie, obviously, Ninja Turtles, Oppenheimer. I think Bottoms came in at 4.
That's good. I'm excited for Bottoms. I hope it does well. Well, we were talking about that prior to air, too, that I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to see it this week. So hopefully it does well enough that it'll still be around next week.
Yeah, that's a great segue into, I wanted to give a shout out to Bottoms. Yeah, of course I haven't seen it yet, but the new comedy Bottoms was released limited on August 25th and was met with high praise. And now it finally got a wide release on September 1st. The film follows best friends PJ and Josie, who start an underground fight club in a high school in order to meet girls and lose their virginity. It sits currently at a 95 on Rotten.
That's good. That's good. I highly recommend that director's other film, Shiva Baby, which I believe I've recommended before because I like Rachel Sennett in that movie a lot. She's at a funeral, a Shiva, sorry. Trying, like, it's super awkward for her because like her ex is there, her ex-girlfriend is there. It's really that kind of awkward humor, but it's a good movie and Rachel Sennett's great in it. I highly recommend that. I'm excited to see Bottoms, and shout out to Ayo Edebiri as well because she's a lot of fun and she's great and she's amazing in The Bear.
And now it's time for the weekly recommendations.
Winding it back to you, sir.
I got 2. I have one that already got name checked on this, and one that semi got a name check, kind of. First recommendation is The King of Comedy, which I just rewatched last week. A movie that I love, a movie that every time I watch it, I'm like, how did this movie bomb when it came out? Because it's so fucking good. Martin Scorsese, I think that's his follow-up to Raging Bull, with De Niro, who is fucking amazing in the movie. Jerry Lewis is great too, and a lot of people always say, oh, well, Jerry Lewis is kind of an asshole in that movie because that's who Jerry Lewis was in real life. But in the movie, he's kind of justified being an asshole because De Niro is so off-putting. So, like, I get how he's acting in that movie. But he's great in it as well. And Sandra Bernhardt is awesome. She's so good. And that movie is another movie that's kind of uncomfortable because he's just so delusional. Like him, De Niro and Bernhardt are just so delusional, being these super fans / stalkers of Jerry Langford, who's the Jerry Lewis character. But man, it's so good. I was talking with Joel like after I watched it, and he's like, "Yeah, like I can't believe that movie bombed. It's amazing, and De Niro should get more recognition for that film."
Why do you know why it bombed?
I don't know why it bombed.
Was it just because it's...
Other than it's just like an uncomfortable and awkward film.
Also, was it just like not what people wanted from Scorsese, you know? Coming off of Raging Bull.
Maybe, maybe not. His 80s work is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, very underrated, but every single one of those 80s movies is fantastic, and I love them. He went smaller, obviously. A big part of that was he was trying to secure financing to do The Last Temptation of Christ, which is a big passion project for him, which he does later on in the decade. But he makes King of Comedy, he makes After Hours, and he makes The Color of Money in between Raging Bull and The Last Temptation, and all three of those movies are really fucking good. And I don't know why the King of Comedy bombed. I'd have to see, like, maybe the release date had something to do with it. Maybe it was up against some heavy competition. Maybe they weren't expecting that. Maybe it's just such an off-putting film.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great. It's shot like an independent movie. You can tell, like, when they shot a lot of that stuff out on the streets in New York City, like, they didn't shut down the street, and those aren't extras in the background. Those are just random New Yorkers wandering around. And Joe Strummer. The Clash is in the movie in the background, if you're paying attention. But yeah, great movie. I highly recommend it. And again, like, De Niro is on fire in that movie. They used to play old clips of that on the Stern Show, like, back in the day, where he's in the basement, like, doing the rehearsal, like, pretending to be on the show and everything, and talking to the tape and saying, this is how you would introduce me and everything. And then they can hear his off-camera mom yelling at him, and he's, "Ma, leave me alone. I'm trying to do my show." The mother, who was never seen in the movie, who was Scorsese's mom. That's the voice of Scorsese's mom. But yeah, highly recommend The King of Comedy. And then my next one is The Righteous Gemstones, because we talked to McBride. A show which I believe I've recommended before. Just ended its third season maybe a few weeks ago, maybe last month, I don't remember. I just finished watching the third season last week. Love the show as much as I like McBride's other show for HBO, Vice Principals and Eastbound and Down.
Mm-hmm.
I still contend that The Righteous Gemstones is the best of the three. And this season, the third season, might be the funniest of the three seasons. I laughed really fucking hard. It's got a lot to do with family and what that means and how you have to accept a lot of the things. And man, just murderer's row of comedic talent on that show. Obviously a shout out to Walton Goggins, who steals every scene he's in. I do want to shout out the great Edie Patterson, who plays Judy Gemstone, McBride's sister on the show. She's the secret MVP of that show, always has been. Adam Devine is the younger brother of the three.
Mm-hmm.
John Goodman, obviously, immense talent, great with comedy as always. Shea Wiggum pops up in this season. Him and McBride are buddies because Shea Wiggum was in Vice Principals with him. Stephen Dorff pops up. Kristen Johnson, Steve Zahn, Lucas Haas. They're all really good in this season, and I highly recommend the show. But this season especially has been my favorite of the three seasons. Has that been a show that you've checked out?
I'm behind. I think I'm still on the second season.
Okay,
but I will. I'm getting there.
Yeah,
it's good.
Second season is more action heavy
Mm-hmm.
than the first season. This one is more comedy heavy than the previous two seasons. Not that the first two seasons aren't a comedy; they clearly are. But this one is a bit more comedy. The second season was pretty heavy on action, which that show does very well. But yeah, check it out. And let me know when you watch it.
I will.
Have you finished the second season of Yellow Jackets yet?
No. I knew that was coming.
Yeah, talk, because I have thoughts on that second season.
I haven't
don't know
even
anyone else who watches it besides you.
I have really
of my friend group. Yeah,
your sister doesn't check it
I
out.
don't think so, and I wouldn't be able to talk that show with her anyways.
I'm still haven't even finished the second season of The Bear.
Oh, really?
I'm like on the last episode, yeah.
Go watch it.
Yeah.
You were on the last episode when we did the show the last time.
I know. I'm just terrible with television, I guess.
That's okay. Finish out that second season.
But I also work a lot, too.
You
so.
do.
Cut me a break.
No judgment. But when you finish the second season of The Bear, and then when you finish the second season of Yellow Jackets, we'll talk.
Definitely. Was that your...
Those are my two.
You two?
Righteous Gemstones and The King of Comedy.
All right. So I want to do a little throwback. I watched Small Soldiers from 98.
Joe Dante.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the great Joe Dante. I hadn't seen it in a lot of years, at least not in its entirety, and it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. And the cast is insane. You got Tommy Lee Jones, Kirsten Dunst, Jay Moore, Phil Hartman, Dennis Leary, Gregory Smith, and it goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like this movie?
Yeah, I do. I like most of Joe Dante's movies. He's a good director, coming off that low budget Roger Corman school, and a lot of his movies are just so much fun. And that's a later period Joe Dante movie. That's a lot of fun, even though I'm guessing that's more of a kids movie because it's PG.
Is it PG?
I think it's PG.
Well, they sneak a lot of... There's tons of adult humor in it. But yeah, I guess you would kind of... It's in the way like how Gremlins is still kind of a kid's movie, but we still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like that. But yeah, Small Soldiers is great. And the Commando Elite are unhinged.
Yeah, I'll try to rewatch it because I haven't seen it in many years. But love Joe Dante, love his movies.
That was my one and only.
That's your one and only?
Yes. I have been playing, I'll plug it again, I have been playing the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre video game, which is based on the original. It's completely like a multiplayer platformer where you can pick like the family members and just hunt down people on the different maps. They have like the gas station, the house, like big landmarks from that first movie that you'll remember. And then you can be like a victim and try to get out before they catch you, essentially. And it's so much fun. I've spent probably 38 hours collectively playing. And I only play as a family. The Hitchhiker specifically is so good. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Awesome.
And I hope they unlock, do some DLC for like maybe like the sequel or the other, other characters from that universe would be fun. So hopefully. Have you heard anything about this?
No.
No?
No. Not until you brought it up.
And shout out to Ryan, who loves being Leatherface. And he's very good at it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now for the movie focus of the week.
Summer of Sci-Fi. So we're talking about Repo Man. It's rated R. It's from 1984. It's a sci-fi comedy. It runs at 1 hour and 31 minutes, and it's got a well-deserved and impressive 98% on Rotten. That might be the... Is this like the highest rated film we've done on the show so far? I don't know. It might be. 98, that's almost perfect. That's
what was Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Still, Raiders of the Lost Ark is 93.
What? I mean... No, that deserves to be higher, but I'm stoked that Repo Man is at 98.
98.
Yeah.
Money doesn't mean anything, right?
Nope.
Written and directed by Alex Cox, starring Emilio Estevez, Harry Dean Stanton, Olivia Barish, Vanita McGee, Dick Rude, Cy Richardson, Tracy Walter, and Fox Harris. When Otto, a young punk rocker in LA, quits his job at the local supermarket and finds his girlfriend cheating on him, he begins to struggle with what to do next in his life. He then is swiftly recruited as a repo man. Meanwhile, in the Mojave Desert, a lobotomized scientist has a run-in with the law, and it is made clear he's hiding something sinister and extraterrestrial within the trunk of his Chevrolet Malibu. Soon, a hefty bounty is put on that same car, which intersects our two stories, coming together to make one hilarious and seemingly unorthodox outcome. The film was written and first conceived as a graphic novel by Alex Cox and was based on an idea by his close friend Dick Rude, who also co-starred in the film. Cox was at the time an aspiring British filmmaker who moved to LA to pursue his dreams, co-founding Edge City Productions and developing his first full-length screenplay for Repo Man. The script caught the attention of Universal Pictures and was greenlit with a micro-budget of $1.5 million. The casting for the film was also a strange one, as filmmaker Alex Cox had originally planned to cast his friends in the lead roles, with Dick Rude first in line for the character of Otto and Cy Richardson up for the role of Bud. But of course, the studio wanted bigger names to help draw an audience, which led Dick Rude to being replaced by Emilio Estevez for that lead role. When it comes to Bud, both Mick Jagger and Dennis Hopper were considered, but ultimately Cox landed on Harry Dean Stanton, who, although hadn't been a leading man yet in his career, had small character actor roles in some pretty big films such as Alien and The Godfather Part 2. It's obvious that there is a huge subculture and punk influence on the film, and Alex Cox did contact a handful of heavy hitters in the genre to help contribute to the music featured in the film. That list includes Circle Jerks, Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies, with Latino rockabilly outfit The Plugs helping to compose the score, and Iggy Pop volunteering to write the film's main theme after his agent screened the film early. Although Cox has went on record to say he doesn't see himself as a part of the culture, he did feel that punk had not been properly represented on film at that point in time, excluding Rock and Roll High School. When the film was released March 2nd, 1984, it was considered a flop, and with Universal under new management, Repo Man was given little to no marketing and was pulled from theaters after just 1 week. However, the movie was given a rare opportunity of a re-release due to the soundtrack wild popularity, and our man Roger Ebert backing the film and giving it 3 out of 4 stars, which allowed the modest indie film another chance at success, grossing $3.7 million against its $1.5 million budget. Although Repo Man is a blend of sci-fi and comedy on the surface, it's also satirizing consumerism, religion, and the Reagan presidency, making the film's longevity and relevance undeniable. Hiding in plain sight, the film at its core is a high-concept art film, and it's no wonder why it's available restored via the Criterion Collection. Although it is available digitally, we can't stress the importance of physical media enough. 5 out of 5. Good day, Toss! Thank you.
I have that Criterion disc.
Me too.
It's a good one, and
it's full of it's robust for sure.
Yeah, and definitely I'm with you on the physical media, as a lot of stuff that ends up on streaming drops off from time to time or gets pulled all together. So that I'm physical media till the day I die.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can watch Strange Days whenever I want to.
That's right. In the right aspect ratio.
In the right aspect ratio. I mean, it's awesome that HBO plays it, but every time it's on, I'm always like, it's the wrong aspect ratio. Like, what's that deal? They obviously remastered it in digital.
So, of course, let's open up the floor to you, man. Obviously, we have a little bit of age difference. So I'm curious to hear, like, what was your first experience with this movie and what does it mean to you?
I don't remember exactly how I saw it the first time besides just renting it from... I must have heard about it. Mm-hmm. I think I might have heard about it from a good friend of mine because he was into all kinds of music, like in the 80s, punk, and that's how I got into The Clash and everything was through this guy. And I maybe heard about it through him, or he had the soundtrack or something, so I had seen like that cover. And then probably when I was in high school, came across the movie, at the warehouse or Hollywood Video, wherever I was at the time, and picked it up. I liked it, but I don't remember exactly how. I remember it being like a cult movie, and I'm guessing through that friend somehow is how I heard about it.
Nice. So it's kind of like almost like how, like I feel like SLC Punk is in that bracket where it was kind of passed along, as in like a friend thing where you're like, hey, check this out, it's badass, and then your memories kind of get lost in the shuffle because you find these things through obscure ways, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, that makes sense.
And ever since I saw it, loved it. It's kind of a wild movie.
It is random.
Yeah. There's a lot of random stuff in it, but somehow like they all gel. All those scenes gel, and really love it. And the fact that it's a good cult movie really helps. Love the soundtrack. And that's one that I own. I think on multiple. I think I have it on CD as well as vinyl.
Nice, you have it on wax.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, and it's a movie that I really like, and one that I told you, I think when we were talking last month when we previewed it, that originally like one of the theaters had like a lineup of repertory movies that they were going to show, cult movies that they were going to show throughout the year. That year turned out to be 2020. So they only played like 2 or 3 of them before everything shut down. But like Repo Man was playing, I don't know, August, like late summer. And I remember being really stoked to see it in the theater.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then just everything shut down and it never came to fruition. So I was really bummed because I'd never actually seen it in the theater before and wanted to. And I think the Ken might have played it like midnight movie and I just never got a chance to catch it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they would have played it as a midnight movie. Owned it on DVD for a long time, and then when Criterion came out, I picked that up. And Alex Cox is kind of a fascinating filmmaker that had, I wouldn't say success. I think this is the biggest success. Maybe Sid and Nancy. But had like this kind of streak in the 80s of these kind of kind of offbeat. That's the word I'm searching for.
He's almost kind of like parallels Lynch, right? With his like, I don't know, there's just like this super weirdness to him.
Yeah.
Where if you were to show his stuff to like a casual moviegoer, they'd be like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, Sid and Nancy is probably his most straightforward movie.
He had a hand in writing Fear and Loathing, right?
Yes, we will get into that discussion later because there's a really fascinating backstory to that. Yeah, he was the original director on that movie and then got kicked off. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, like this Sid and Nancy is the follow-up movie, which I think is probably more straightforward than any of the other ones.
I think that also has a very high rating on
It's a good movie. That's another movie I just rewatched.
Roger Deakins is the cinematographer on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another movie with a fucking fantastic soundtrack, too. Straight to Hell. Have you ever seen Straight to Hell?
I don't think so.
It's pretty fucking bananas. Joe Strummer's in it. Plays one of the 3 leads. A young Courtney Love is in it. Which she has like a bit part in Sid and Nancy, but she plays one of the main characters in Straight to Hell, which is just like this violent Western. Only it's not really, because it's a modern movie. So it's like they're driving like cars and shit.
Neo-Western?
Yeah, but they like get to this town and it's basically like an old West town and everyone dresses like they're in the Western. But there's like machine guns and shit and like, modern day touches to it. But it's just like really random, violent. What I like about Cox is, there's at least the 3 I've seen. There's another movie called Walker with Ed Harris. One I haven't seen. One that's like kind of hard to. I don't think it's streaming. It is on Criterion, though, but I haven't watched it. But with Repo Man and with Sid and Nancy and with Straight to Hell, so many people in those movies are in all three of those movies. Even if it's just, bit parts. But you could go down the cast list of Repo Man, and I guarantee you that 3/4 of them are in Straight to Hell and or Sid and Nancy. This is a movie that I love, like I said. Maybe we're playing a little bit fast and loose with the definition of sci-fi for this, but I thought this would be a good random, smaller film to end Summer of Sci-Fi on, because it has that background stuff.
Of course.
That's going on. I mean, obviously, whatever's in the trunk is extraterrestrial. The Layla is looking for aliens. They want to expose the truth. There's like the random agents that are tracking it as well, but they're sometimes just in the background of things.
Yes.
There's like stuff going on in the background. Even the Malibu's kind of just like driving through scenes that don't really have anything to do with the Malibu and with Parnell. Yeah. Like after the first time that Otto repos a car with Bud, and they're on the freeway, the Malibu just kind of like cuts them off in traffic.
Yeah.
And then just drives off.
Swerving.
Yeah. So, hopefully this was a good pick.
Yeah.
For the Summer of Sci-Fi.
Of course. I feel like we've had it on the dock for a while.
I told you a while ago I wanted to talk about Repo Man.
Yeah.
Because it was one of my favorites. That's just like one of those random films that kind of had this underground feel to it. Even though it was from a major studio, which would never happen today. They wouldn't go with like something this wild. But then again, today there's a lot more smaller studios, and something like a Neon or A24 would pick it up. Well, there wasn't a lot of research on this movie.
Okay.
IMDb has a shit ton of trivia on it, but a lot of it was either repeated because IMDb repeats itself a lot, or just stuff that wasn't terribly interesting.
Okay.
I think one of the more interesting aspects of it, and you mentioned this in your write-up, is Harry Dean Stanton, who plays Bud. It's kind of a wild man and didn't get along with Cox, and there was all kinds of trouble with him on set. And you're talking about, like, we're watching the scene with the Rodriguez brothers where he has like the bat and he's swinging the bat around. That was a real baseball bat.
I guess from my research for that, they got mad because he actually destroyed a camera.
Oh, okay.
With the bat during that scene.
Because I know he swings and it comes a little too close to like some of the talent, and I think the cinematographer as well. And they're like, maybe you need to use a fake bat. And he did not like being told to use a fake bat.
I guess he was, throughout the production, he was really trying to have a hand in like the creative input, and he just said that they were kind of disrespectful and they wrote him off and didn't really pay attention to anything that he was kind of saying he wanted to do. Maybe
that's just Cox has his vision and you need to stick with it. We talked about this before when we did Raising Arizona, where Nicolas Cage is great in that movie, but apparently didn't get along with the Coen brothers because he had his own idea on how he wants to do things and how he wants to play the character, and they want him just to stick to this.
I guess Stanton actually said that he felt like Alex Cox was making some like amateurish decisions.
Oh,
and so he was getting,
because it was his first movie.
Yeah. Which, I don't know, watching this, it feels like pretty, like for the amount of money that it was made for, it seems very polished and it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, you mentioned earlier when we had it on, like the car chase.
Mm-hmm.
Where the Rodriguez brothers are chasing the Malibu, and then Bud and everyone else from the repo office are out looking for some trouble and see the Malibu and see the Rodriguez brothers and start chasing them. And yeah, like that little car chase that happens is pretty well shot, pretty well choreographed. So if Alex Cox was an amateur director, he seemed to know what he was doing.
That's very true.
But I do want to shout out Harry Dean Stanton and like all the great movies that he's been in. He just passed away not terribly long ago, a few years ago. 2017, 2018.
Do you know what happened?
No, not off the top of my head. Not without looking it up. I had looked it up the other day, like how or when he died. And then I should have written it down. I just know that it was within about the last 5 years he died. But you mentioned Alien.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Escape from New York, which I just rewatched, which I love.
That's right.
He teams up again with John Carpenter with Christine. He's in Red Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
As whose dad was he? Was he Charlie Sheen's dad?
I think it is Charlie
Sheen and Swayze's dad. And he's like, "Avenge me!" Pretty in Pink. He's in The Last Temptation of Christ. And then David Lynch used him in most of his movies. Because he's in Wild at Heart. He's in Twin Peaks. The Twin Peaks movie, Fire Walk with Me. He's in The Straight Story. He's in Inland Empire. So, just one of those dudes that's been around, or was around forever. And was always a supporting character, and if not the main character, because that's probably Otto, he's definitely the co-lead.
Oh, yeah.
In this movie.
Yeah.
And he's great in it. He has so many like fun scenes and so many fun bits of dialogue. That first scene where he runs into Otto, where he gets him to steal the car. And he sells him the story about, oh, like my wife's pregnant with twins. I gotta get her to the hospital. She's about to drop, but I can't leave her car in this bad neighborhood. And Otto's like, well, where's your wife? And he's like, never mind. We gotta get my car out of this neighborhood.
Never mind that.
He's like Doc Brown in Back to the Future. Never mind that. And then after Otto does steal the car, and they get away and they get back to the repo office, he's like, where's your wife? And he's like, oh yeah. Or like, what about your wife? And he's like, oh, she'll take the bus.
Stanton claimed that a lot of like his lines and that he was just riffing and it was improv.
Really?
Like he was reworking what was actually in the script.
Man, because he's great. That whole like his whole riff, like when he's actually teaching them the ropes of being a repo man, like what to do, and don't carry a gun. Only an asshole gets killed over a car. Oh, this is an intense job. That's why everyone I know does speed. Smash cut to them like doing coke in the car. I took an oath like not to damage the car. I forget what the exact wording of the oath is, but like he won't damage. He never looked in the trunk. He never like broke into a car. It's like his whole like teaching them the ropes by just all these like scenes that are cutting. With him talking more about whatever the code of the repo man is. Mm-hmm. He's great. But just that first interaction with Otto where he's like telling him that story. It's kind of like the story is getting like more and more outrageous with each line reading and with each question that Otto is asking. And then, oh yeah, like, where's your wife? Oh, never mind. We gotta get her car out of the neighborhood.
Out of this bad neighborhood. So yeah, shout out to him. I think a big part of what got him to shape up, according to the trivia on IMDb, was he was a big fan of the cinematographer Moore. I guess he got along really well with him. Okay.
So whenever he was kind of giving Alex Cox a hard time about doing something, Alex Cox was like, hey, we want to do this one for Robbie Mueller, who was the cinematographer. We want to do this for Robbie. And so Harry Dean Stanton would be like, okay, we'll do this for him. Yeah, Bud, all time.
What are your thoughts on the Dennis Hopper or Mick Jagger?
Mick Jagger wouldn't have worked. For Bud?
Yeah, for Bud.
No way. No, it needs like someone grizzled. Dennis Hopper probably would have worked. Dennis Hopper works with Cox eventually in Straight to Hell. He only has one scene, but he's got a pretty pivotal scene in Straight to Hell.
I guess the only reason why they didn't actually go with Dennis Hopper, because at that time in his career, Hopper had a reputation of being explosive on set, and difficult, which is ironic that they still kind of got that with Stanton.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. We don't want this guy. We want this guy who's going to be just as much trouble. That was kind of like a fallow period for Hopper as well, who really didn't have a comeback until a couple years down the line when he does Hoosiers and Blue Velvet in the same year, and then kind of has this comeback.
Mm-hmm.
And then he I don't remember. I was trying to remember what other movies he had directed. Like if he had done anything in the 70s and early 80s. I'd have to look it up. I want to say Paris, Texas, but I don't think that's him. I think that's Wim Wenders that does Paris, Texas. But he has like this major comeback in his directorial aspect of his career with Colors in 1988. So yeah, he was kind of an eccentric wild man and kind of a dead period of his career for a while. But I could definitely see him in the Bud role.
Yeah.
There's that scene where they're driving through the LA River and Bud's talking about, there's gonna be some bad shit coming down these days. And Aldo's like, where are you gonna be? Like in the middle of it? And he's like, no, I'm gonna be right here doing 110 per. I can see Hopper. Damn, Mick Jagger. Did they just want like the big name to like draw in more audience?
I think so, but that's random.
Yeah,
but
it works with Dean Stanton and may have worked with Hopper because like they kind of have that like grizzled, like older, been through a lot of shit vibe to him. And Mick Jagger maybe he's been through a lot of shit, but just doesn't really have that vibe to him. I could see him having like more of a sinister vibe, but he's not a great actor. Not in the way that Hopper or Dean Stanton were.
Yeah.
I mean, the supporting cast is great. Emilio Estevez, obviously. Not his first movie, but definitely his first starring role. Is definitely his first big movie. He's in The Outsiders, but, I mean, who's the starring role in The Outsiders? More of an ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Matt Dillon?
Mm-hmm.
Since he's kind of the lead character, but I still would argue that that's more of an ensemble film than anything else. Hopper is in Rumblefish, though.
He is.
Which I think is a year or two before Repo Man. He's good in Rumblefish.
I like Rumblefish, yeah.
Yeah. But Emilio Estevez is great as Otto. I like his introduction where he's in the supermarket
yeah.
and his buddy Kevin, who he treats like shit throughout the entire movie, but somehow they're like still friends.
You don't think that they're friends until until Kevin's at the party, like after Otto quits his job, and then we cut to what is the house party, right? Mm-hmm. And then Kevin's there with him.
It's because Kevin's house,
yeah, because they fire Kevin too. They're like, get the fuck out of here.
Which I think that was his dad that owned was the manager of the store. Because later on, when Otto lies and talks about like who beat him up,
yeah, they go to beat up.
They go to the house, and like Kevin
is standing in the background.
Yeah, the manager of the supermarket like opens the door, and like Kevin's in the house too.
Did you notice what's playing in the background when they open the door? Do you notice what it references something that happened in the beginning of the movie? You don't know what I'm talking about?
No.
So when what is it? The peaches. When Otto and Kevin are like they're stacking up
peaches.
the peach slices cans or whatever. Kevin is singing this
singing the 7-Up
7-Up jingle, and when you watch that, fast forward to that scene where the Otto lies and sends those guys to beat up the owner. He opens up the door, and if you pay attention, you can hear the 7-Up commercial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the background.
Yeah, he's singing the 7-Up jingle, and then Otto's like, "Stop singing." He's like, "What? I'm not singing that." He's like, "No, you are. I'm standing right next to you."
Yeah. I wasn't even singing.
And then he puts the price tag on his glasses, and then when the manager tells him that you got to leave,
he's like, "You've been late." you've been very late lately. I wasn't going to say anything, but it just seems I've heard that you're not really paying attention. And he's, are you even paying attention to me right now?
He just has that blank look on his face. He just kind of looks at me and goes, "Fuck you." And then he tells him to get out of the way, and he like pushes Kevin down on the way out the door. And then the security guard, who's like real overzealous, like pulls his gun on him.
And then he starts spinning it all crazy.
Stacking the
And they make Kevin get out too for no reason.
He kicks Kevin out too. But then that was his dad. Which
is even more weird. Because he was just assaulted by Otto, and they're like, "Yeah, you get out too."
And then it's as you mentioned, it's the party is Kevin's house, and he treats him like shit there. And then later on, after he's looking through the want ads, he's looking through the classified ads for new jobs. Otto shit talks him there. He just sends those dudes to beat him up. He's such an asshole to him. That's what's that dude's name? Xander Schloss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who joins the Circle Jerks. I think he's hired as a camera operator? Hang on. Let me flip through my notes. He got hired as some other job. A production assistant. Sorry. He wanted the part of Kevin the Nerd.
Mm-hmm.
But he was hired as a production assistant. And Chris Penn is the original Kevin the Nerd.
Wow.
Yeah. He's cast in that role, but after shooting that first day, they think that Penn's kind of playing it too comedic and not straight.
Mm-hmm.
So they just fire Penn, and then they get Xander Schloss instead of saying, "Hey man, well, instead of playing it comedic, why don't you play it kind of straight?"
They don't even give him a chance.
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like they just, he's playing it too funny. You get rid of him, and then we'll take this kid that really wanted the part.
Is that, have you went through the bonus features? Are we able to find that Chris Penn outtakes or anything?
I don't know. I haven't flipped through those because, like you said, as usual with Criterion, there's just a plethora of bonus shit on those discs,
mm-hmm.
and the Repo Man's one that's got so much. It's kind of hard. You barely have time to watch the movie. Sometimes it's I definitely don't have time to sit through all the bonus stuff.
Yeah, they have an essay. They have the artwork is amazing. Yeah. It's very kind of
the cover art's great. Mm-hmm. I love the cover art on it.
It has a zine, a zine punk aesthetic to
mm-hmm.
it. That's awesome.
Yeah, Schloss takes over the role of Kevin, and after the production ends, he joins the Circle Jerks. He wasn't an original band member. He joins the Circle Jerks, who have a cameo in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Through the night. They have 2 songs on the soundtrack. One of their songs is playing right after Otto gets fired, and there's all those punks thrashing about in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Is that Coup d'etat that's playing?
Uh-huh.
And then they actually have a cameo as the nightclub act when Otto's meeting with Layla and Agent Rogers in the nightclub, which it's great. I don't think it's that version that's on the soundtrack though, because it's a really laid back, very much a nightclub vibe
mm-hmm.
to that. It's either that or the golden shower of hits. The versions aren't the same.
Yeah, of course.
I think the original version of the song is much faster.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish that the nightclub version was available.
It's hilarious.
And I was I used to like those guys. They're still good. They're still a good band. If I went to the club and the nightclub act was doing that, giving off that vibe, I'd be into it. Yeah, they got a couple songs on the soundtrack, as does Black Flag, who is playing on the soundtrack at one point, and then right after that, Otto is singing it
mm-hmm.
to himself, while he's drinking in the by the train tracks or wherever the open field is where he's in. Looks like he's somewhere off the 6th Street Bridge, which is a very famous bridge in Los Angeles. You've seen it in 1,000 different movies.
Mm-hmm.
you would see it a few times in this movie because it's the bridge that Otto runs on when he's chasing the Malibu.
Would you say that this is set in a alternate dystopian
A semi-dystopian
LA?
LA?
Yeah, right. It looks so weird and grimy and
Yeah.
you know.
Maybe it was like that. Maybe that's how it was in the 80s. I don't remember Los Angeles a whole lot in the 80s from all the times I was up there. I mean, the blue and white food, or the blue and white like generic packaging,
Yeah.
which I personally remember because it was like the Ralph's generic brand was the blue and white. But this movie takes it like really far, where it's just like the can and it just says food, where he's eating out of it.
And the mom is like, "Honey, why don't you put that on a plate? You'll enjoy it more." And he's all, "Oh no."
No, couldn't be better than this. This is really swell. Like the open can.
If I remember correctly, I think Roger Ebert said that had him laughing out loud in his screening of that delivery of that line. Got him.
Yeah, that's a scene that Joel and I will reference a lot. Like the random can of food that just says food on it, but also like his delivery of the, "Oh no, this is swell." And he's talking to his parents because he's trying to get money. Because he doesn't have the job, and he got fired from the job, so he's trying to get money out of them and says, you promised me that if I went back to school, like you'd give me money. Mm-hmm. Can I just have the money now?
And they're like, "Sorry, we don't have it," because they donated the money. What was supposed to be given to him, they donated it to a televangelist.
So yeah, which is another like kind of undertone of the film is like the televangelism stuff that pops up from time to time, and even that guy pops up at the end of the movie, like actually in the parking lot with the Malibu. Yeah, they gave away his money. But his parents are like zombies; they're just like staring at the TV.
Isn't the mom? Doesn't she like light up a J or something?
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. Like while he's talking to her, she's like, "No, we don't have it." Just zombied out on the couch.
Yeah, they don't even look at him. They're just like staring at the TV.
He doesn't even really get that mad. Like he's like, "Oh, I can't believe this," and just leaves. And then that's when he kind of really accepts like the Repo Man job because he has no choice.
Yeah, he doesn't want it. He gets the car, and then he goes back to the office with Bud. And they're all sitting around, and they offer him beer, and then he kind of figures out that they're Repo Man, which he kind of has no respect for, because then he dumps all the beer out on the floor.
Would you say that it's super interesting how he's obviously he's coming from like this punk background, and then he's being pursued to be a Repo Man, but then being a Repo Man is like the super anti-punk. What she kind of grapples with, and then he's all, fuck it, because nothing's going right for him.
Yeah.
So he kind of accepts it. But I find that the juxtaposition of those two, kind of fascinating.
And even he changes the way he dresses.
Yeah.
Because then, Bud's telling him, "Oh, you got to dress like a detective." So
because they think you're packing.
Yeah.
Right? He's all, "Well, are you packing?" No.
Only an asshole gets killed for a car. But yeah, after he becomes a Repo Man, even if he's not in the suit and tie, he's dressed a lot nicer.
Yeah.
Than he was early on when he was the punk.
He takes off the earring, like his style obviously changes. And when he runs into his friends, he doesn't really acknowledge them. It's just like they're passing by and nothing happens. He's just like, "Oh yeah, that's them."
Yeah, like when he's in the nightclub and they come over and they're like, "Oh, hey, Otto," and
yeah.
They start like, kind of messing with him a bit and everything, and say, "Oh yeah, like those are friends of yours." And he's like, "Yeah, I made them myself," but he doesn't really get into it. But we were talking about his friends, who just kind of like pop up at random, kind of wherever he is throughout the movie. I mean, we see Duke in the beginning because he just got out of jail. Or juvie, I guess it's technically juvie because they're teenagers. He sees him like when he's in the parking lot, like where everyone else is thrashing around. But then they go to the party at Kevin's house, and Otto is with, what's her name? Is Debbie?
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells him to go get a beer, and he goes to get a beer, and when he comes back, Duke's in bed with her.
Yeah. He's all, oh, this is bullshit, man.
And he leaves, and then at some point in time, like Duke and Debbie and their buddy Archie all become criminals, and they're like robbing the convenience store. There's that scene where they're buying stuff, and then after, or Bud and Otto are buying like the drink that just says drink.
Yeah.
And they leave, and as soon as they leave, like they pop up from behind the counter.
No, wasn't that Otto?
Yeah.
And don't they say like, man, fuck that guy or something?
And then there's that other scene where like they rob a joint and then they leave, and just right after they leave, like Otto goes like walking in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're robbing like a pharmacy or something. And then their getaway vehicle as they're running away, it turns out it's the Malibu, because the Malibu was parked on the street. This is after the Rodriguez brothers pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And they get in the Malibu and drive off with it. And it's just it's funny like how their paths cross like all the time, or how they're involved in this whole story at the same time everyone else is. And then it culminates in Archie looking in the trunk and getting zapped like the cop does in the beginning, the highway patrolman. Just like the random whatever's in the trunk. Layla says it's aliens. But whatever it is radioactive.
Because they run into that scientist again.
Yeah.
He walks up on them and he's all, yeah, I don't think you guys have what it takes to look in that trunk, huh? Just egging them on to get them killed. And then Archie was all, no, like, I'm a real man. I could do it. You know, and then
he wants to be the leader.
Takes himself out. Is it true that that trunk pop and them being zapped like that's kind of taken from Kiss Me Deadly?
Kiss Me Deadly, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Which is a good noir movie, and has like there's something in like a suitcase, or like a bag that's radioactive that you never actually see, but whenever it's opened up, you know, light flashes. And
is that what Tarantino is doing?
Yep.
Yep,
and even a book that I was reading by John Ridley, screenwriter now, but used to be just like a novelist. He wrote Three Kings, and he wrote 12 Years a Slave, and Undercover Brother was a series that he had created, like a cartoon or a web series or something that he had created. Anyways, Oscar-winning screenwriter John Ridley used to be a novelist and had a book called Love is a Racket. Great book. But they make mention of the guys like watching, I think, Repo Man. And they mention Pulp Fiction and Kiss Me Deadly. And it's like, like, this is used in Pulp Fiction, but also it's a reference to Kiss Me Deadly. Maybe he's watching Kiss Me Deadly, and he references Repo Man and Pulp Fiction in that book. But I remember reading that and being like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, and that's because at that point in time when I read that, I'd never seen Kiss Me Deadly. Like I thought the briefcase was a reference to Repo Man, and then I found out later on that it's actually Kiss Me Deadly that both those movies are referencing. But yeah, it's a good noir film from like the mid '50s. But it's obviously like something atomic is in that briefcase or that suitcase, whatever it is.
Do you know what that you remember when Layla pulls out that picture and she's like, this is the picture of that's two aliens, and then Otto is just like, wah. Do you know what that's a picture of?
It was like sausages. Was it sausages?
I believe from what I read in my research, it's two water-filled condoms.
Oh, okay.
With like Leia's or something, the Hawaiian straw skirts.
Oh,
they have the straw skirts on them, I guess.
Not lays. Lays are the flowers, the flower necklaces.
Whatever. Those skirts, the Hawaiian skirts, I guess. Which is so bizarre. And it makes you wonder, like, okay, well, what is really in the trunk, right?
Yeah.
Because then the scientist talks about, like, a neutron bomb, right? Later on.
But then that same picture that Layla gives them is on the front page of, like, the whatever, the Weekly World News or whatever the tabloid is later on when Otto picks that up. But it's funny, I like when he laughs at the picture.
Yeah, that laugh.
And then she's like, laugh it up, fuckface. Because she's hiding because she sees the agents, you know. And so, because he tries to pick her up randomly. He, like, sees her on the street and he's like, oh, hey, you need a ride?
Hey, baby, you need a ride? And then she's like, she's going to leave, and then she kind of, how do you say, like, propositions him for sex, and he's all, right here? And then they do it, but they, like...
The film speed is sped up.
Yeah. They just hop in the back seat.
Yeah, she's on the run from the agents, and she sees them in the car next to him. That's why she gets on the floor of the car, or gets on the floor of the front seat. But yeah, like I said, like it's a crazy movie. There's lots of crazy stuff that happens. But yeah, the picture of the aliens, supposed aliens, what's in the trunk of the car,
decomposing aliens.
Decomposing.
Right? That's why I guess they're dying, and that's what's emitting the radiation.
Yeah,
supposedly.
because Parnell is obviously sick. He gets like
contaminated,
and then even when the Rodriguez brothers pick up the car, they're talking about like how hot it is in the car, and then when Lagarto. When he's on the phone with Marlene, we should talk about the Rodriguez brothers.
Yeah.
Just kind of like they're like rival repo men,
pretty much.
Basically, so they're after the same thing. But Marlene, who's the receptionist at the company that Bud works for, turns him on to the car as well. She's got something to do with this
because it's like a $20,000 bond, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's assuming that they think it's drug related because it's too much money for a car that's not worth that amount, right?
But she turns them on to the car, so they're after it, as well as, you know, Bud and the other guys at the office. What, a helping hand is their front?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're after it, and they manage to pick it up when Parnell stops for gas. They steal it out of the gas station, and they're driving around, and they're like, they're talking about, you know, hey, it's hot in here, you know, whatever's in the trunk is gonna like melt. And then when they pull over to get a drink, Lagarto goes to call Marlene to say, hey, we got the car. He's like, oh yeah, like this car is hot. He's like, no, not stolen. Like it's actually hot in the car.
Yeah.
And then that's when they get it stolen from them by the punks. And then, you know, Parnell comes across it. Oops, that was my pen again. The pen that I'm not using, but is in my hand regardless. When Parnell comes across the car, when they're outside the nightclub where they meet up with Otto.
So I know they do kind of make light references to Los Alamos. Are we supposed to think that that's where this?
Yeah, because if you pay attention to the opening credits, the credits kind of track along, you know, his route, and then they start in Los Alamos,
which is notorious for their like supposedly extraterrestrial shit, right?
I don't know about Los Alamos, but like Roswell,
okay,
New Mexico is supposedly where an alien craft crashed in. I want to say 47, sometime in the late 40s, and now it's like a big government conspiracy thing. Is that the aliens crashed there? We've known about the aliens that get mentioned all the fucking time. It was all over the X-Files. It's mentioned in Independence Day.
There's a Roswell show, right?
The show where they were aliens, right? But yeah, he's coming from Los Alamos. which is the nuclear. That's where the nuclear bomb was developed. One of the biggest movies of the summer.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah. So whatever it is, extraterrestrial, nuclear, whatever it is radioactive.
If it's nuclear only, does that make this film not sci-fi? Technically?
Good question. Probably. But yeah, it's aliens. That's what everyone is after.
But also, okay.
But he does, like you said, he does mention the neutron bomb at one point.
But then at the end, if it is strictly nuclear, you can't explain why is the car being able to fly?
Yeah.
Why is Miller unaffected?
It is glowing like it's radioactive, though. So we're talking about the Malibu. The production only had one Malibu, which promptly got stolen.
Yeah.
A couple of days into filming.
Which is horrible for a production.
A low-budget production that could only afford one car. So it gets stolen, and then they scramble to find another one. Actually, the first one gets recovered by the police, undamaged, unharmed. So they actually have 2 Malibus eventually in the production.
Did you notice in the beginning? So when we see the Parnell in the beginning moments of the film, and he gets pulled over by that highway patrol.
Highway patrol, yeah.
It's a different license plate, and then from that, after that point on, the license plate then reads, I think it's 127 GBH. Is that a reference to GBH, as in the band?
I don't know. I figure that the license plate mix-up was just them having 2 Malibus.
Yeah, well, that's why I bring it up.
Just bothered to not change the license plate to match it up.
Yeah. But I just think it's ironic that, and I'm not even sure if GBH was a band in that time that this was shot, but it makes, that's crazy.
Are they out of Los Angeles?
I think they're the UK. And then, of course, we know Cox is...
Yeah.
Is English. Yeah, GBH are an English punk band, which were formed in 1978.
Okay. Maybe it is. Maybe that's on IMDb and I missed that trivia.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting that the license plate changed and then it's a GBH reference.
Then I just chalked that up to them having 2 cars eventually.
They're like, continuity, fuck it.
It was low budget. But being low budget, the effect of the glowing car at the end was just paint and lighting.
It was like a reflective paint, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess like when you put the like a light source on it, it looks like how it is in the movie. But it's a great effect.
Yeah,
it looks awesome, and it fits in with the time. When you watch it, it makes sense, at least to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Malibu, speaking of Parnell, do you know that he didn't know how to drive?
Is that why the Miller thing is there? Because he talks about how he's like, the more you drive, the less intelligent you are.
I don't know. I read in doing the research that Fox Harris, who plays Parnell, didn't know how to drive, and actually when he pulls into the gas station, crashes into one of the pumps and damages one of the Malibus. But he was just some guy that knew Cox from the actor studio in Los Angeles. Couldn't drive a car, had like minor accidents, was always so nervous behind the wheel. And I think if you watch some of those scenes, it's either a stunt driver for a lot of them. The driver on the freeway, when you see him pull in front of Otto and Bud, is definitely not Harris. Or it's someone else. But I think even at the beginning when he's pulled over, apparently that's a bunch of different shots shot over 2 different time periods.
Because he couldn't drive that?
Yeah, because he's not the one actually driving the car.
You would think, like, just practice, or like...
Well, usually when they drive cars in movies, they're not actually driving. When they're at least the shots behind the wheel and everything, they're being towed by like a like a trailer or something that's towing the car, and they're just looking like they're driving the car.
To veer off just for a second, do you know who else doesn't know how to drive?
In the film?
No.
Or just
in general, in a movie that I think you and I both mutually love. But it has to do with, it's called...
It's not Gosling, is it?
No. But you're close.
Really? It's not someone in the Fast and Furious movie.
No, you hit it on your first try.
Oh, is it Drive?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not Gosling.
Mm-mm.
Someone that drives in that movie? Or just someone in the movie that doesn't drive?
It's Nicholas Winding Refn doesn't know how to drive.
Really?
He doesn't drive at all. I just thought that was interesting, and I'm glad you didn't know, because then...
No, I don't know. But he's from Denmark, so I'm assuming because that's Europe, they're driving on the opposite side of the street. You don't have to know how to drive. You just have to have like good transportation to get somewhere. Good public transportation. I mean, there's plenty of people from major cities that don't drive because the public transportation is there. I don't know. Maybe Copenhagen's public transportation system is killer.
It's very good.
Maybe someone in Fast and Furious doesn't know how to drive, but fuck those movies. Like, what do I care? I mean, before we go talking about other stuff, I want to shout out Drink. See? We got the movie playing in the background. It helps when you're talking about it if you want to refer to something. Yeah, see, buying the beverage that just says drink.
Which I'm sure is beer, right?
I would assume so.
They would just do railing Coke.
Yeah.
They're that's beer, but it's interesting. It says drink.
I want to talk about Light, because Light might be my second favorite character in the movie outside of Bud.
Very good.
Light's played by Cy Richardson, who's a friend of Cox's from UCLA. And apparently he was originally auditioning for the angry black guy that's there in the office when they first show up. When Bud and Otto come back from repoing the car the first time. That's like talking about, how come you have my car? Like, I got the money here. Like, I had to like save up to get this. And he's giving like a hard time. And then when he goes and get the car, always like, oh, that's the best damn car on the lot. And he's like, you bet it is.
They kind of walk away they get this little like swagger.
Yeah. But then he tries to like pick up on Marlene. He tries to hit on her as he's like walking out the door. But originally that's who Cy Richardson was auditioning for. But because Cox was like super impressed with him, he just gave him the role of Light in the film. And again, like, he's in all of those Cox movies in the 80s. He's in Sid and Nancy. He's in Straight to Hell. He's one of the three leads in Straight to Hell. He's in Walker, which you mentioned. He's in They Live, another movie I just rewatched not terribly long ago. Colors, Mystery Train. He's in Men at Work, great movie. He's got a bit part in The Grifters, a movie that we talked about a few months back. So shout him out as Light. He's like Bud. He's got a ton of great dialogue where he's just like talking his talk and just teaching Otto like the ways, and just that whole speech he has after they boost that red car. Well, I shouldn't say boost. They steal it, but
that's the thing is that his code is different than Bud.
Yeah,
where he's not afraid to get his hands dirty to break in.
He carries a gun, even though you find out later on it's just blanks. He just has it to scare people.
Yeah, he's more into the... he's still a good dude, but he's more into the intimidation part of the job.
And he even says that when he's talking to Otto after they steal that red car. He's like, oh yeah, like I walk into people's places of business and they're shit scared because they know I'm no cop. But then he's just like talking all that. I shouldn't say talking tough because he actually backs it up. But he's just, like I'm an intimidating person. You gotta do this. He has that whole thing with he has like the tape.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about, oh yeah, like you should check these guys out. I was into these dudes before anyone. They asked me to be the manager. He's like, I called bullshit because being a manager for a band is like is no job for a man. And there's a track on the soundtrack which is basically that, like, this funk track that plays underneath him and all his dialogue. But he uses the trick with like the rat.
Oh yeah.
To try to like scare the woman into giving up their car. And she maces him, and you're like, oh yeah, and he just like drives off and leaves him there.
He said, oh shit, Light, where are you?
He's like, oh yeah, you use this trick often? Just with the ladies. But the woman's not even fazed by the dead rat. She just pulls out the mace.
She says like, oh, how charming, or there's some line where she's just like super unfazed by he just threw a rat on her. Because I'm assuming they thought she was going to jump out and take off, right?
You get like really scared and grossed out.
And then they never he's not even, Otto's like not even mad at Light after that, huh? They're just saying they just continue to hang out.
Yeah. And then when he tries to repose the guy's car in front of the house, and the guy starts shooting at him, and then Light rolls up and, has the gun, and Otto's like trying to get in Light's car, and Light's just like, oh no, you still have a job to do.
Like, get in the other car.
Get in the car. And he's firing the gun, and then you find out later on that it was just blanks. Because I was like, oh, like, what are you doing carrying the piece? Like, you could kill people, because he's just like firing like at random in the guy's house.
Blindly, yeah.
And then, Light shoots at his feet, and he's like, oh yeah, like blanks get the job done too. But he's got the gun when Otto gets in the car with him, and he's going through like his briefcase, and you can see the gun that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Light tells him to put it down, or else he's gonna like shoot himself. But there's the part where they're all like hanging out and talking, like outside, like they're giving Miller the haircut. And we need to talk about Miller too, because the great Tracy Walter, who's been in 1,000 different movies, they're giving him the haircut, and they have that whole discussion about like John Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And Miller tells a story about John Wayne, and then
yeah,
which I won't really get into, using some words I'm not going to use. But after they talk about that, and like how John Wayne was like kind of creeping on some dudes and everything, and then always like, he's like, hey, lots of guys like to watch lots of straight guys like to watch their buddies fuck. I know I do.
And then they start all joining in. I'm like, yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Just like kind of a weird thing to do. But then like Light's got the bottle of booze, and just his delivery of like, he was like, fuck John Wayne. And then he's like talking to Otto, because like Otto got beat up by someone and they want to know who it was. But just the way he delivers the line, he like does that like kind of like pelvic thrust when he delivers it. Fuck John Wayne, man.
Is that the scene where they like, he just like, they cut to him just like randomly chopping at his hair?
Yeah.
Or something?
Just like randomly getting a haircut by who was it, Ollie? Is Ollie the one giving him the haircut? And Pletchner, or like the rent-a-cop, who's like always in a shit mood, who's always angry. Because when Otto says he doesn't want to like say who beat him up, like Pletchner and Ollie like grab him and force him.
They're like, you don't understand.
Yeah, they had the code, man. One of theirs got beat up, so they wanna go and retaliate. And then that's when he sends them to Kevin's house. But then they're like chasing the Rodriguez brothers, which. They corner him in that underpass, and I'm almost positive, rewatching this movie now, I'm almost positive that's the same underpass in Los Angeles where one of the car chases in the original Terminator ends. Like after it's after Tech Noir, and then eventually they go into the garage and Reese steals another car,
mm-hmm.
and then there's the car chase because the Terminator catches up to him. there's the car chase that ends in an underpass where the Terminator crashes the car, and then the cops corner Reese, and Sarah Connor tells him, not to pull the piece, so the cops will kill him.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the same underpass. It looks exactly the same. So, if someone knows that piece of trivia, I would really like to know if that's the exact same place where the Terminator crashes the car and Reese gets captured.
Hit us up.
Yeah, let us know. I swear that it is. But they cornered the Rodriguez brothers, and they're going to beat them up, and then they end up getting sued because they crashed their car. It's a wild movie. Shout out to Cy Richardson. He's great as Light. Love him in this role. And he almost got a lot of Harry Dean Stanton scenes because he was being so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So Cox was almost thinking about just giving the scenes that would have been Bud's to Light instead. But once he kind of reined him in, and Dean Stanton started to behave, yeah, he finished out his scenes.
What are your thoughts on the sequel that never was? Did you hear about that? Or did you read about that? Waldo's Hawaiian Holiday.
Waldo's Hawaiian Holiday, there we go.
Which was supposed to be a direct sequel to Repo Man. And I think they had a script done, and Emilio Estevez was set to return, but then it was kind of derailed after Estevez left the project. I guess his reason for doing so was he felt like it wasn't, it didn't make any sense, and he thought it was going to be like a failure. So he kind of exited on that, and then after that, it never kind of came to be. But I believe it might be 2007, 2008. A graphic novel was actually released.
Graphic novel based off of that script for the movie that never got made.
Exactly. Okay. So you can still consume it in that medium, which is cool. So it does exist. Yeah, technically.
I might check that out, just out of curiosity. I'm glad it wasn't a sequel. It's a movie that doesn't need a sequel.
Yeah.
It's a movie that's pretty self-contained. I mean, shit, they fly off into space at the very end of the movie.
To me, it's kind of like how they did the SLC Punk 2.
Yeah, for what purpose? Like, that's a self-contained story.
Yeah.
And it's like some random movie that nobody fucking knows about.
Mm-hmm.
That has almost nothing to do with the original.
Mm-hmm.
You don't make sequels to cult films.
There's no reason for it. And shout out to Matthew Lillard for being smart enough to saying no.
Yeah.
He was like, no, that doesn't... You shouldn't do that, man. And what's his name obviously didn't listen.
Yeah. So let's talk about Miller, the great Tracy Walter, character actor you've seen in 100 different movies. Apparently he's still alive. I had to look him up because he's kind of been retired. He didn't have any IMDb credits past 2016, so I thought that he had passed away, but they didn't list the death date. I just wonder why he hasn't acted anymore, because he's just one of those like great character actors that you see all over the place all the time. But apparently he was good friends with Jack Nicholson, so he was always kind of popping up in Jack Nicholson movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Batman. He's Bob the Goon in Batman. That's always a funny scene where the Joker's disappointed about something. He's like, Bob, gun. And then he like unzips his jacket, hands the Joker the gun, and he just like shoots Bob.
Midnight Run?
Midnight Run, of course. Conan the Destroyer, he's got a big role in that. And then he's like a favorite. He was a favorite of the Jonathan Demme's because he was always popping up in Jonathan Demme movies.
Mm-hmm.
Even like just bit parts, but he's the I don't think he's the funeral director, but he works in the funeral home in The Silence of the Lambs when Jodie Foster and Scott Glenn are in there kind of examining the first victim that they found.
Mm-hmm.
He's in that. He's in Something Wild. He's in The Manchurian Candidate. He's in he's a guy like at the hotel, like the cheap hotel, and Denzel Washington like asked what room his friend was in. He's got like, you know, that minor scene, but he was always popping up in Jonathan Demme movies. Philadelphia, Beloved. He's in Aaron Brockovich. Just some of his major roles, but you can look him up on IMDb if you're curious. I guarantee you've seen him. And he's great in this as Miller, who's the mechanic. But he has like a ton of great scenes and like random dialogue where he's just talking like random shit all the time. He's got that like that extended scene where he's outside and they're burning all the shit in the trash can. And he's talking about, you know, like clairvoyance or how it's weird, like the little coincidences. He has the whole like play the shrimp monologue.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about UFOs. He's talking about like, you know, there was a point when there was no one on the planet. Now there's like all these people. Where did these people come from? He's like, people in the past, they came from the future. How did they get there? UFOs. They're actually time machines. And he's just like, he's talking all this stuff, and like Otto's just kind of like glazed over, and he's asking him like if he's had like, you know, too many drugs.
But then we find out that he is an alien.
Yeah. Can't drive the car, but actually gets in. He's from the future.
And also, my thing is, all of these people, even when they have the flame retardant suits, are burn up because they try to get too close to the car. But then when Miller gets in, he's fine, obviously, because he's some kind of extraterrestrial being, I guess. But then he signals Otto to come with him, and Otto is also unaffected. So why is that? Does Miller have the power to be like...
I think he's got the power, Yeah, but even Bud, when Bud was in the car, wasn't really...
He was okay.
He seemed to be okay. He was still in bad shape from the gunshot wound.
Which Otto just fucking left him there after being grazed by the punks.
Yeah, it looks like he gets shot in the ear, but later on when you see him, he just has like the wrap around his head, so he didn't get shot in the ear. But yeah, we didn't talk about that scene with the punks where they go in. Excuse me, Otto and Bud are in the convenience store, and this is after Archie's dead, so it's just Duke and Debbie, and they come in, and like Bud pulls his gun, and there's like this big. It reminds me of Boogie Nights.
Yeah, it's
scene
like
in the donut shop in Boogie Nights, where it's just like it's a crazy shootout. Like one person shoots this person, who shoots this person, and
it's a wild standoff.
Yeah, because like Duke gets shot, and then I think is Debbie the one that shoots the clerk behind the counter? Because the clerk shoots Duke, who shot Bud, and then Debbie shoots the clerk, and then she turns a gun on Otto, and Otto's trying to like talk her down.
You know, hey, what about our relationship? Is it too late? Like, are we past that point? And she's all, yeah, a little.
And she just like tosses him the popcorn and bails. And then Otto goes to talk to Duke as he's dying. And he's like, oh, I don't know why I turned to a life of crime. I blame society. And Otto's got that great line where he's like, what do you mean? You're a white suburban punk, just like me. Yeah, after that, he like checks on Bud, and then just fucking leaves him. But he calls him out on it later on, where he's like, I'm sorry I left you, when he visits them in the hospital.
Which then all hell breaks loose again at the hospital, where you have like the agents come, and then the Rodriguez brothers are there as well with Uzis and shit.
Well, later on in the movie, before this scene, Otto gets Layla is eventually kidnapped, and then she knows that Otto knows where the car is, so then Otto gets kidnapped. The car he found with Parnell, who dies, he brings back to the lot, but that car gets stolen out of the lot by the agents. So Otto gets picked up and interrogated. Tortured by Layla. She's the one like on the knob.
Yeah.
But it's Marlene and the Rodriguez brothers who come in and bust him out, which apparently was all part of Agent Rogers' plan because they want Otto to lead them to the Malibu. But it's actually Bud that stole the Malibu. But yeah, you're right. When he goes to the hospital, like find Bud again, like all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And he just jumps out the window.
Yeah. Yeah, because they pull the pins, right, on the, it's like the smoke bombs or whatever.
Yeah, like the SWAT team shows up. They pull the pins on like the smoke grenades. And then Otto like jumps out the window and takes off.
Then you just see Otto like breaking into another random car with with the traffic stopper thing.
Which it doesn't work the first time. It's
yeah,
kind of like bounces off the window.
Yeah.
And there's like that fun little chase through the parking garage.
Yeah, and it's good. Like we were saying, it's staged very well, and it looks like they're really doing it.
Yeah,
right. Like the Rodriguez when their car kind of hops off that curb. It looks like it's really them. So impressive stuff. Because that could have easily totaled the car.
Yeah.
Too, you know?
Well, because this was a low budget movie, I'd be willing to bet that they didn't really have like stunt drivers, and I bet that that's pretty much the actors doing their own driving in those scenes, except for Parnell, who couldn't drive his car. I shouldn't say Parnell. Except for Fox Harris, who couldn't drive the car. But yeah, Bud ends up back at the repo office. You hear that news report as Otto's driving about the rain of like ice in the middle of the city. So Otto assumes that that's where the Malibu is because all kinds of weird shit is happening around this car. And drives over there and finds Bud in the front seat. And then the cops chase him. The agents show up, and Bud gets out. And he's got his gun. And that's when Otto's trying to talk him down and say, hey, man, what are you doing? Like, they're going to kill you. Like, no asshole gets killed over a car. And then Bud starts firing at the cops, and they shoot at him.
He gets tagged in the stomach, right?
Yeah.
A couple times.
But you don't see him die because he's still alive as Otto's talking to him. But I'm going to guess that he gets killed.
That's right, because they kind of cut to him, and he's just like while all this crazy shit is happening, he's just like smoking a cigarette on the ground or something.
And like Ollie rolls up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, what's up with Bud?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, what does he say?" He quotes, I think that's a Che Guevara line, isn't it?
I'd rather die standing than
die on my feet than live on my knees.
Yes.
Like as he's dying on the ground in the parking lot. But then that's everyone's trying to get close to the car, and then getting zapped. There's the electricity. The one guy, like you said, catches fire.
Also, when there's this crazy scene where they like set Parnell on fire.
Yeah, because he gets out of the car and he dies from the radiation exposure on the bus stop.
And they straight up just torture him on the bus stop, and they show it. And it's
But Miller gets in the car and beckons Otto, and then they float up and they're flying around the city, and then they eventually disappear into space.
There's that one funny Layla line where she's all, "But you can't go, Otto. What about you and me? Like, what about our relationship?" And he's all, "Fuck that." Just totally doesn't care. Yeah, and it was just like she didn't ever really seem that interested in the first place. Even when he goes to visit her, remember while she's at work?
Yeah.
And he's just trying to come on to her, and she's just slapping him.
She's using him as a means to find the Malibu.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the music. Not just the punk soundtrack, which is awesome, but also I want to shout out the Plugs.
Yeah.
Because their original score for the film is great. They have a ton of great tunes. They have the Mexican version of Secret Agent Man.
Mm-hmm.
which is hilarious, which is playing on the car when the agents are driving around in the background. Their track El Clavo y la Cruz is probably my favorite on the soundtrack. You can hear it playing on the radio when Otto steals the first car, when he repos that first car, and then they're driving down the freeway. That's what's playing on the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a bunch of other just original pieces that aren't on the soundtrack, which is kind of a bummer because there's that scene where we gotta talk about this scene. The scene where Otto's trying to repo the older black lady's car,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like trying to like get it from her, but he's trying to be nice about it and everything. And then it cuts to the guys on the motorcycles, like the scooters, and it's got this really great piece of music underneath it that's like really funky, but it's not on the soundtrack.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer because I like that piece a lot. But their sound, the Plug score is like real kind of like surf music sounding.
Uh-huh.
Great, and shout out to them. Shout out to Tito La Riva, who is had his band Tito and the Tarantula. They appear in a lot of the Robert Rodriguez stuff. He actually appears on screen in Desperado,
Mm-hmm.
and in From Dusk Till Dawn. They're the band in From Dusk Till Dawn.
He kills Tarantino in Desperado, right? Friends of yours?
Yep, he does. He does. And he's the guy that is chasing after Banderas.
Mm-hmm.
After Banderas shoots up the bar the first time.
Yeah.
So shout out to them because they did a lot of great score. And then I wanted to shout out the Untouchables, who famous LA ska band, who are the guys on the bikes who show up at the woman's house as Otto's like trying to repossess the car, and they're like all intimidating him. And then when he gets in there, he leaves. He's like, "Okay, I'll see you later." And then he leaves, and he sees the car out front, so he jumps in really quick to try to drive off with it. But it just like it keeps just spinning and spinning and spinning. And then it cuts to they put it up on a jack so he couldn't steal it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they come out and beat him up. That's the Untouchables. Great ska band. I've seen them live. They were awesome. Saw them on the double bill. Them and the English Beat.
Wow.
Shout out to the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano, a place I've been many times to a lot of great ska shows. Saw the Scatolites there. Mm-hmm. And then saw the Untouchables and English Beat, and that was a Halloween show, was it? No, that wasn't the Halloween show because I saw the English Beat on Halloween back in 2009.
Okay.
The Skeletones played with them on Halloween, but the first time I had seen the English Beat play there at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano, the Untouchables were like not the opening act, there's always like one act first that's kind of like some local band, basically. Mm-hmm. They were the official opening act for the English Beat at the Coach House. One of the times Joel and I saw them up there. And they were awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So, shout out to them. They're in this movie, which I didn't know that was them until the credits rolled. And it was like, oh yeah, like the guys on the motorcycles are the Untouchables. I was like, wait, what? That's going to blow Joel's mind when I tell him that tomorrow. I'm hanging out with him tomorrow. And when I tell him that, it's going to blow his mind. Because he doesn't know that. All the times that we've watched this movie, he doesn't know that. Do want to shout out, this came up in my research, one of the camera operators working on Muller's crew, first time guy, is Robert Richardson, who you might know as a very famous, now Oscar-winning cinematographer, who was a go-to guy for Oliver Stone for many years, was a go-to guy for Scorsese for many years, and is now Tarantino's go-to guy. And Tarantino's done, I think, every movie of his since Inglourious Bastards, including that film, has been shot by Robert Richardson.
2009 and on.
Right. But won some Academy Awards for JFK, again for The Aviator and Hugo, nominated for Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, pretty impressive. This was his first movie, working as just like a random camera operator on Moore's Crew. So I thought that was a really cool piece of trivia.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the list of the movies that I read you that he worked on with the guys that we know, that he had a big collaborative relationship with. Those are some bangers.
Definitely.
So, shout out to him. Okay. So, Repo Man, as you mentioned, opened on March 2nd, 1984.
Mm-hmm.
Comes in number 16 at the box office. Which is, number 16 was even below Return of the Jedi, which was in its 41st week of release at the time. But Repo Man opens with a weekend haul of $95,300. Another future cult classic movie opens up on that exact same day. You want to take a wild guess what it is? Give you a hint. 1984, it's a comedy. Did obviously no money at the time, but is a pretty famous cult movie now.
You got me. I don't know.
This is Spinal Tap.
Ah, okay.
Which opens up in the spot below Repo Man.
So it was 15?
Repo Man was 16, so Spinal Tap was 17.
17, okay.
17th box office. I don't know what that take was for the weekend, but this is Spinal Tap. But when I was doing the box office research, I was like, oh wow, like that movie opened up on the same day. That's really cool. That not as big as, you know, in 82 when The Thing and Blade Runner opened up on the exact same day. But those two movies, which became future cult classics, you know, didn't do well at the box office, but became these future cult movies. And these two, like, super low budget movies opened up on the exact same day in 1984. And are cult classics, and probably looking at the rest of the box office for that weekend, it was like, I don't remember any of these movies. None of these movies made a cultural impact except for the number one movie at the box office that weekend, which was Footloose. So that's the only one that kind of had that staying power, at least in the top 5 to 10. And I forget what Return of the Jedi was. That might have been just one spot above Repo Man. But like I said, Return of the Jedi was in its 41st week of release. Still hanging on. But our buddy Roger Ebert, like you said, gave it 3 out of 4 stars. And this is what he says. He says, I saw Repo Man near the end of a busy stretch on a movie beat. 3 days during which I saw more relentlessly bad movies than during any comparable period in memory. Most of those bad movies were so cynically constructed out of formula ideas and commercial ingredients that watching them was an ordeal. Repo Man comes out of left field, has no big stars, didn't cost much, takes chances, dares to be unconventional, is funny, and works. There's a lesson here. So pretty high praise from our buddy Roger Ebert. Did you say in the write-up that Ebert's praise of it got it kind of another look at the time?
Yeah, so what I think happened was, with his glowing review sparking interest, plus the soundtrack flying off the shelves, I think that they had to, even record shops had to keep ordering more because they couldn't keep up with the demand of it. It sparked like this new interest after it was pulled in being in theaters only a week. It was pulled because of Universal. Universal was forced to do like a re-release, which doesn't really happen, you know.
For such a low budget movie,
yeah. A re-release so quickly. And then it was able to kind of recoup and make a profit. I think it made at least $2 million in profit, which is cool, you know.
Yeah, because you said it cost 1.5. Its total take is 3.7. So yeah, it makes just over $2 million in profit. Yeah, good for them. I mean, Universal was kind of like, oh, we don't know about this movie, but at the end of the year, a lot of people had it on their best list. You know, it gets a lot of acclaim. Is considered one of the best films of that year, 1984, a year which also has Ghostbusters and Gremlins and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Terminator and Amadeus Beverly Hills Cop, Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, those are some of the movies that came out in 84, and Repo Man's got lumped in with that group of really great flicks. In 2008, the writers and editors at Los Angeles Times compiled a list of the best films set in Los Angeles at the time, the last 25 years, and Repo Man was 8th on that list. You want to hear the others? I do have that list.
Yeah, let's hear them, man.
In order, LA Confidential,
Okay.
Boogie Nights, Jackie Brown, great pick. I mean, LA Confidential, Boogie Nights, obviously, great picks. Boys in the Hood, Beverly Hills Cop, The Player, Clueless, then Repo Man, Collateral, The Big Lebowski, Mulholland Drive, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Training Day, Swingers, Devil in a Blue Dress, another great, super underrated movie that we're probably going to end up talking about these days. Friday, Speed, Valley Girls, To Live and Die in LA, LA Story, To Sleep with Anger, Less Than Zero, Lech, Mi Vida Loca, and Crash. So, this is my beef with this list. Where the fuck is Heat on that list of great Los Angeles movies?
Yeah, you have Collateral.
You have Collateral. I can understand if you were only going to pick one movie from a director, but as much as I love Collateral, and it's a great Los Angeles movie, I would put Heat above that as a greater Los Angeles flick any day. So that's my beef with that list. Also, you have Crash on the list? What the fuck? Put Heat on that list. Sub in Heat for Crash, at least.
It's the Matt Dillon Crash, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mulholland Drive is a very good one. Training Day. Swingers is a very good one. Speed.
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper. I was super stoked to see Boogie Nights, Jackie Brown on there. Especially Jackie Brown, because it kind of highlights like the Southland area of Los Angeles, which you never really saw a lot of in some of those movies. And I don't know if you want me to go through this list, but I do have this magazine. It was Entertainment Weekly back in the early 2000s, had like a list of like the 50 best like cult films of all time.
Okay.
And Repo Man is on that list. I think it's, 7th? I'll give you some of the highlights. The number one cult movie of all time is This Is Spinal Tap.
Okay.
Number 2 is The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Makes sense.
Yeah. Pink
Flamingos, which is on that. I think it's like 4 or 5. Have you ever seen Pink Flamingos?
Yes.
It's fucking vile.
It's a wild movie. Yeah.
But I do love John Waters. But I remember watching that for the first time because I'd always heard about it, and I remember watching it for the first time and being like, "Whoa!" Like, there's so much wild shit in this movie. Literally.
What do they call him? The Pope of Trash?
The Pope of Trash. He's got a new exhibit up at the Academy Museum in Los Angeles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just opened. I think he's got a lot of stuff going on throughout the year.
Very nice.
Up there. But some other ones, Eraserhead, awesome. Plan 9 from Outer Space. The Shawshank Redemption, which I guess is a cult movie because it didn't make a lot of money, even though now it's widely regarded as one of the best films ever made. Showgirls, obviously. Big Lebowski. Pee-wee's Big Adventure on that, although I never saw Pee-wee's Big Adventure as being a cult movie. Wasn't that like a pretty sizable hit? Hard Boiled, Evil Dead 2. Dazed and Confused. I never thought Dazed and Confused was like a real cult movie. Like, isn't that like a pretty well-regarded film too?
Yeah, it was a hit, right?
Yeah. Rushmore. I don't think Rushmore is like a cult movie. That was a pretty well-regarded film when it came out. But whatever. So those are some of the highlights on there. I don't want to go through the list of all 50, but I picked out some of the ones that were pretty recognizable or that I had something to say about. Scarface, Blade Runner are both on that list. The Warriors. But yeah. So Repo Man is number 7 on that list, and This Is Spinal Tap's at the top.
7th is a pretty good spot, right?
Yeah. And unlike some of those, I would argue that this is a true cult movie.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's, and just that's in our last episode for Steel. I was talking to Ryan about how a lot of people, they don't understand what a cult movie really means, where they'll be like, yeah, we're showing cult movies and it's like Jurassic Park or something, and it's like, but that's not.
Even the theater, like the list I was telling you about, like they had their list of movies they were going to play through 2020 of like cult films. Like one of them was The Untouchables, and I was like, "Are you kidding?" Like that was a huge hit for Paramount. It's an Oscar-winning film. That's not a cult movie. Believe me, I'd have been the first in line to watch it in a theater again because it's an amazing movie, one that I absolutely adore, and one that I've seen in the theater and looked amazing on screen. But that's not a cult movie. But I agree with you, yeah. Like, some people have these weird definitions of what a cult film is. And no, a cult film is a movie that comes out, like, bombs at the box office, makes almost no money, but later on, like, picks up this like, real fan base of people. I mean, The Big Lebowski is a cult movie because that movie was hated. And bombed at the box office, but later on, like, became this huge hit from, people just kind of like finding it and discovering it. And so I would love to get a list of what some people consider a cult movie. Yeah, the biggest movie of all time at the time it came out with Jurassic Park is not a cult film.
There was one thing that we left out. That was, I think he acted as, and forgive me, but his name escapes me right now, but one of the members of the Monkees.
Michael Nesmith.
Yes. Was kind of like the bridge between Universal, right? And he was really excited about with the project and didn't even want to really fiddle with like Cox's vision or whatever, but he helped kind of get the ball rolling on the whole movie, right? Essentially. Which I think he had also worked on, what was it, Time
Bandits.
Yeah.
And then also he has, I think it was him that put his foot down with trying to really get rid of Harry Dean Stanton. I think it was him that was that told Cox, no, we don't want to get rid of him. Let's figure something out. Yes, Michael Nesmith of the Monkey. Hey, we're the Monkeys. They had a TV show for a while, like in the 60s. I used to catch it like on Nickelodeon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
Nick at Night?
I don't even think it was Nick at Night. I think it was just like randomly played during the day when I was elementary school age.
That is random.
Yeah. But I have seen many episodes of that show. I don't know how many episodes there were, but I remember seeing at least a handful of them when I was younger.
Is it good?
It was a weird show. No, it's bad. It's a bad show. They weren't actors. It was super goofy. But I remember watching it.
No,
it wasn't good. No. Okay, so here's the story that I promised you at the top of the show about Alex Cox and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He is hired as the original director of that movie, which was long in development. The novel's written in 1971. So he's hired in the mid-90s by Rhino Records, but they had like a film production company at the time, so they hired him to direct Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He co-writes the screenplay with his wife, Todd Davies. She was a Hunter S. Thompson scholar at UCLA. But while they're in pre-production, Cox has creative differences with one of the producers on the film. And the producer on the film forces Rhino to make a choice, either me or Cox. But one of us needs to go. So the producer, she had to deal with Thompson to make the movie. And Thompson really disliked Cox and Davies' script. So because of that, the production company decided to keep the producer and then fire Cox off of the movie. They fire him, they pay him out like the $60,000 in script fees, and then they hired Terry Gilliam onto the project. Terry Gilliam brings on his co-writer, Tony Grissoni. They write their own script for the film, but as it comes to the 1998 re-release, the Writers Guild of America still credits the screenplay to Cox and Davies alone. Not Gilliam, not Grissoni, just Cox and Davies. So Gilliam protests, says, why are Cox and Davies getting credit when their screenplay has nothing to do with our screenplay? The Writers Guild says, you need to prove that you wrote 60% of the screenplay, and then we'll give you credit. The movie's based on a novel, or based on this book, so like pretty much any screenplay that gets written is going to have a lot of the same shit in it because it's based on source material. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of what's going to be on screen is all going to be stuff that is adapted from the book. So still, the Writers Guild is giving Cox and Davies sole credit on the screenplay and not Gilliam and Grissoni. Maybe just a couple of weeks before the release, they reverse their decision and they give credit to Gilliam and Grissoni first, and then Cox and Davies second, even though Cox and Davies' version, as Gilliam will tell you, has nothing to do with their version. But that's how the credits play out, because I remember one of the posters for the movie had, I think, just Cox and Davies as the sole screenwriters on it. Mm-hmm. And then, like the release, the bus shelter that I have, the big gigantic poster, is credited to all four. Gilliam and Grissoni first, and then Cox and Davies. But I remember the writing credits on even like the movie posters and the DVD and everything being fucked up because of all this. Because I think, you know, stuff was obviously printed out well ahead of time. And this decision to credit both parties wasn't made until just before the release, like a week or two before the release. So Gilliam and Grissoni get their credit, even though they have to share it with Cox and Davies. And Gilliam is so upset about it that he ends up burning his Writers Guild card at like a book signing event on the day of the film's release. But Alex Cox was the original director for this film, and he still has a screenplay credit on that film, despite possibly him not really having anything to do with the movie that we got.
What I find interesting, also, that's another cult film, because it did not do well, right? Do well, yeah. But it's a great movie.
Unless you're Joel and I.
You watched it several times.
I watched it so many times in the theater.
But I wonder, had they stuck with Cox, would that have mattered, and what was, like, how different?
Yeah.
Would that movie have been? You know,
I would have loved to have seen his version of it. Not that I don't love the Gilliam version, obviously I do.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those alternate universe things where it's, you know, if he had made this movie, I'd kind of be interested to see in what his version of it was. But I'm glad Gilliam made it. It's amazing.
It is.
And I wonder, because that was probably a decade after Cox's, you know, adventures in Hollywood, which didn't really work out, because that movie Walker, like, none of those movies really made a lot of money, but that movie Walker apparently bombed hard for, was it Universal? I think Universal got scared off of it, because the movie's very violent. They got scared, and it gets distributed by someone else. But that essentially ended his career in Hollywood, because it bombed so bad. So that's a decade before what would have been Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, probably, which comes out in 1998. I don't know if Cox had made it, if it had come out any sooner, but would that have brought him back into the fold? That was with a major studio, because Universal is the one who distributes that film.
Well, that's the thing, is that you would think even the Gilliam version would have done well, because you have Depp and you have Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
Although they're playing against type and they're not... it's a very off-putting film. I remember you telling me that you were working at a theater when it was out, and that you would constantly get refunds.
Refunds or people walking out. Yeah.
because it's just a very, how do you say, anti-structure movie.
At the same time, you're going to watch the movie. Do you not know what Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is?
Yeah, if you're a fan of Hunter S. Thompson or you're aware of that style, then...
Or have you not seen the trailer? Are you just going in blind to a movie? I mean, I've done that myself a couple of times, but I knew I was going in blind.
Even the poster lets you know what kind of movie it is. So it's very bizarre, but... And I don't know. I don't know. I just... maybe it was ahead of its time. And I don't know, since Cox was not financially feasible in the first place, I don't know that his version would have done any better, you know, per se. It's hard to tell.
Still be interested to see.
Oh yeah,
what he had.
Down. If there was anybody else in an alternate reality, I would like to see that.
Yeah,
what that movie would have looked like, because I think he could have done it well too.
Yeah. Well, like I said, his wife was a scholar, a Hunter S. Thompson scholar, so she knew her shit. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering what that movie would have looked like, what it would have been. So as we've talked on the show, especially last month when we did Total Recall, I told you I'd be very interested to see what David Cronenberg's version of Total Recall was.
I think this is a great episode and a fitting end to Summer Sci-Fi for this year.
The end of Summer of Sci-Fi. I have some ideas for what will hopefully be our third annual Summer of Sci-Fi next summer. But that wraps up our Summer of Sci-Fi, and I hope this was a good one to end on. I hope our listeners enjoyed it. I hope they're fans of the film, and if not, I hope they are able to watch the film.
Check it out. It's available digitally everywhere, but like we said in the write-up, pick up the Criterion.
You won't be disappointed in that version.
2K scan, it looks great, and it's worth it. The artwork, the design in general is a great pickup.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily wild about the cover art on like the regular
standard
release, the standard one, you know, the movie poster, but the Criterion cover is really cool.
What are we going to be talking about for technically the end of September, right?
The end of September, which I think will be on a better schedule by that time. We're going to go into the fall with a couple of heavy-hitting movies, and September we're gonna talk about a great crime film, one of the best ever made, one that already got a name check on this podcast at some point in time. I'll let your listeners figure it out, maybe. But a movie that is an amazing film, one of the best, got famously snubbed as a Best Picture award winner against the movie that was far lesser film, in my opinion. This was clearly the best movie of the year, in a year that has 4 or 5 really good fucking movies, some of which have been name checked again on this podcast tonight. Much better than what actually wins Best Picture that year. So I'm excited to talk about it. Classic crime movie. That's all I'm going to say.
Very exciting, especially because I know what it is.
Yep.
With that, also, so that's for the end of September, but we are going to be starting our spooky season, obviously.
What is it?
Huh?
What is it? What season is it?
Spooky. Spooky.
Where's James? Spooky.
Yeah. We're starting our horror films.
Awesome. Well, we have a good Halloween movie for you when it comes time for us to do the Halloween show.
Yes.
We have a good movie to wrap up your spooky season.
Thank you so much for coming through, obviously.
Yeah, no problem. As always, thanks for having me on the show. I always enjoy doing this. I'm glad that we got a chance to reconvene in a cool spot to do the show again.
Yes.
This is turning out to be a really good place.
If you don't know what it is we do, we go by Drop the Mic. We operate out of San Diego, California, and we are available on all major podcast platforms. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So check us out. Give us the 5-star rating, a quick little positive review if you have a couple extra seconds in your busy life. It matters. So yeah, check us out. Check out our backlog of previous episodes. This is 331.
Yeah.
Which is a lot. And that's not including bonus episodes, and we have the Admiral's Cove stuff. So
you don't count those as official episodes?
No, they're like offshoots, I guess.
Wow. Okay. So yeah,
we have more.
Yeah, you've done a handful more for sure.
Yeah, check out our stuff. We don't really limit ourselves to any one genre. I get that question in person a lot, where they think it is we only do thrillers or we only do horror movies. No, we do everything, a little bit of everything. So go back in our backlog, check it out. There's something for everyone. Yeah. And thanks to everybody who continues to listen. Thank you, Chris, again, for showing up.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And with that, this is Wesley Swanson and Chris Pollock signing off, saying good fight and good night.
Good night.
So how much do I get paid? $25 a car?
Paid? You don't get paid. You kidding? You work on commission. That's better than being paid. Most cars you rip are worth $200 or $300. $50,000 Porsche might make you $5,000. Come on, dickhead. It helps if you dress like a detective, too. Detectives dress kind of square. People think this guy's a cop. You're gonna think you're packing something. They don't fuck with you so much.
Are you?
What?
Packing something.
An asshole gets killed for a car. The guys that make it are the guys that get in their cars at any time. Get in at 3 a.m., get up at 4. That's why there ain't a repo man I know that don't take speed.
Speed, huh?
I never broke into a car, never hot-wired a car, kid. I never broke into a trunk. I shall not cause harm to any vehicle nor the personal contents thereof, nor through inaction let that vehicle or the personal contents thereof come to harm. It's what I call the repo code, kid. Don't forget it. Etch it in your brain. Not many people got a code to live by anymore. Hey, look at that. Look at those assholes over there. Ordinary fucking people. I hate them.
Me too.
What do you know, kid? See, an ordinary person spends his life avoiding tense situations. Repo man spends his life getting into tense situations. Assholes. Let's go get a drink.